kids, welcome back to Roto Talk.
Hey kids, welcome back. It has been a good long time, yet again. I apologize. Been a few things going on, but not really. No, not really at all. Here's the problem. No new kits to build, and I built almost everything that I want to build. So I'm still waiting for some zip kit stuff to come out and a couple other guys. The water is so unbelievably low, I can't get my rowboat in to retrieve a boat. I told you this in the last video. And it's getting colder, and the weeds, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, fuck. Okay. Helicopter, and all of us, we talk about our families sometimes, and there's only about 15 of us or so right now. There's actually like 30, but only 15 actually show up. It's a fun chat. So, been talking with those guys and whatever else, and been working on the web page, where I'm selling boats that we build on the channel. I have sold one gasser off that page and made some contacts and sold like 3 or 4 electric boats, which weren't even on the page, which is fine because I'm not an electric guy. We all know that. So if you're looking for a really good, fast, cheaper than you can build gas RC boat, go to my webpage. Shop page, whatever the hell they call it. It's in the description, and go on there and have a look, and you can give a nice boat a good home. All of them aren't going to be sold. It's only going to be a few until I get some more room, and then I'm going to take some down. So first come, first serve with that stuff. So I to kill some time, obviously I do work. So I was working, and I got back into restoring guitars because many, many moons ago, for those of you that don't know, I've been playing guitar for, let's see, how old am I? 39 years now? I'm 49. Started when I was 10. I went to Columbia for music school. Just been a guitar head for fucking ever. I've got 50 of them, 60. And I used to restore guitars, like flip them and, restore Gibson Les Pauls, Strats, and, Parker Deluxes, whatever the case may be. So I kind of this year got back into that. And so I do custom paint jobs and swirl jobs and, restore and fix necks and do all that stuff because I don't have a lot to do with boats right now. I can't run. I can't build really. Whatever. So that's the gist of that. And I quit vaping. So I've been a little bit of a ragged bitch for the last couple of weeks because I started smoking Camel non-filters when I was 13, and I'm 39. I quit smoking, well, when was that? 9 years ago? Maybe 8. And I've been vaping ever since, and that I'm trying my best to. It's been about 9 days now, and I haven't committed homicide, and I live with 3 women. That's pretty good. That's good odds,
I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid!
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
But no, that's going pretty well. So, yeah, it's sad to see things go. I'm a really good addict. I love smoking, but whatever. So, what we're going to talk about today, sorry for the litany, but it's been a while. In my last video, I asked you guys, and gal, if there's one out there, was what was something you'd like to see? And somebody said prop sharpening and balancing. Okay, Now, I think this is a pretty how do I put this? Everybody has their own way of doing this. And you'll get the old gripey, haven't been laid in 30 years guys. They're like, this is the way you do it.
Oh, no tears, please.
Okay, fine. Whatever blows your skirt up, dude. That's how you do it. I'm going to show y'all how I do it. And if you disagree, that's fine. This seemed to be fairly sharp. So, but take it with a grain of salt. Everybody has their method. It's like sharpening a knife or something like that. All these guys are hunters or whatever, knife collectors. This is how you do it. Oh, this is how you do it. Okay, fine. And what's interesting, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a sidebar just because I feel like I'm in a rambling mood. When I was a kid, I was born in 1974, and I started working in high school. I actually was an apprentice butcher for 2 years at a mom and pop butcher shop, like a really kind of a high end one. And I learned how to cut meat and do, you know, real butchering stuff. And I learned the old-fashioned way how to sharpen a frickin' knife. And that was from a 400 stone to a 3,000 grit. I mean, just a bag of, you know. Now, the head butcher of the place, he actually had a belt sander. This guy that owned it. His name was Daryl Bales. And it was like this little 1-inch, I don't know what grit the sandpaper was, a little 1-inch belt dude. And he'd do these hook-eye knives. And they would be like a frickin' razor blade. One day, and then a complete asshole the next day. I mean, just, you never knew what you were getting with this cat. So I said to him, I said, you know, Daryl, I want to sharpen knives. I want to sharpen knives, you know, because I was like a teenage rock star and loved knives and guns and, you know, and all that stuff. So what's he do? This bastard comes out like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? We close up at like 5:30. Usually out there by 6. And I worked 6 days a week at that joint. And back then they paid kids under the table, all cash. You didn't have to have permission from your high school, none of that crap. So he comes out at like 4:30, 5 o'clock with this big bag of stones. I mean, no shit, dude. Like 400 to, like I said, 2,000, whatever it was. Wet stones. And he goes, here you go. This is how you do it. You do, you know, whatever here, whatever here, whatever here. And we had a hole on the butcher blocks. We had 2 butcher blocks, these big tables. And these big rows of knives, right? And I'd do every freaking one. I was there till like midnight. And I'm like, dude, where's the fucking belt sander? And he goes, you have to work your way up to the belt sander. So, the moral of the story is I know how to sharpen a knife fairly well, even to this day. All learn something. You can cuss me out and say that I'm doing it wrong. I don't really care, because I'm going to keep doing it my way because it works. I didn't start doing boats last week. So, here's what you do. First off, you're going to need a balancer. Now, why do you balance a prop? For those of you that are new into it, you balance a prop so you don't have vibration, okay, or as least amount of vibration as you can possibly have, because you have to think of it. If you've got, 4 pounds on one side and 1 pound on the other, and you're spinning that sucker really fast, you're going to have this effect, right? Kind of like when your tire's not balanced on your car, it's the same thing. Only way, 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 way worse, because you're going so much faster. And it will, if you don't balance your prop, this is what can happen. You can rattle the shaft in your boat completely out to the point where you'll break it, where it adheres into the hull. You know, you guys have seen in my build videos 1,000 times how we put the shaft tube in the hull. It can vibrate so much. Think about this. You're doing this, right? We all know what that is. And it just breaks the shaft tube away from the hull. And then when that happens, bad things happen, right? Bad day at the zoo. The whole thing goes south of cheese. You will fry your engine, okay? You will shoot the bearings. You'll mess up the bearings in the block. If it's an electric boat, I broke a shaft one time, or broke a prop. It wasn't from it being out of balance, but it ended up being the same effect. Like one lobe broke off, like it hit a turtle or something, I don't know. And it literally rattled the shaft out of the hull and ripped the motor mounts out of the hull and twisted the whole thing up and shut out the canopy. It was really cool. So try not to do that. That's why we balance props. Now, the reason we sharpen a prop, if you had to pick one, right? And it's like you have to either sharpen or balance. You can't do both. Balance. Okay? A sharp prop is going to be more efficient. It's going to be lighter. If you're running electric, it's going to be less torque, and less resistance, less everything. It's just going to run faster. If you're running a gas boat, it's going to be a faster, same thing, pretty much. Sharpness is you're slicing through that water. Now, you don't want to make it so paper thin that if you hit one little twig in the water, it's going to bend the edge, and that's really going to screw things up. But sharp enough to, you know, I've done them razor blade sharp, which I think is overkill, and I've done it to the point where, like, if you really push down, it would cut you, which is about, you know, probably right. But balance is first and foremost. You know, okay, if your prop isn't super sharp, you might lose a few miles an hour. Or your motor electric motor might heat up a little bit. Gas usually don't. It might cavitate a little bit. It might have a funky rooster tail if it's not super sharp. But balance is what will destroy a boat. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sharpen the blade. If you're going to do both. And the reason being, you do not want to balance first and then take material off, which is what you do when you sharpen, right? You don't want to balance a prop so it's perfect, and then you take more material off to sharpen it, because then it's going to be out of balance. And then you have to balance it again. Well, then you balance it again. It ends up being a cyclic redundancy. Or over and over and over again, for those of you that don't care about that. So most of these are probably balanced and sharpened. We're going to pick something crazy, I don't know. So the first thing we're going to do is sharpen. Now you can see, now this case I got from my buddy, my good dear friend JJ Horvath in Florida, and he sells these and they're awesome. If you have more than 5 props and you actually do swap props, or you're going to race, buy one of these cases off this dude. This thing's phenomenal. I put it on Robo Tractor, goes down the water. Okay, and it's cheap. I don't remember how much it is. I'll put a link to his thing. Some of my props have seen better days. See that chunk? Okay, that's not good. So you can look at something like that nasty thing. That takes about an 8-horse engine to turn that stuff. So something like this, nice cracker box type of deal. We're going to start with a 2-blade, and that's, I think, what we're going to use in this video. I think a 2-blade's just easier to do. Now, anything that's more than a 2, like a 3, if you're running a 4, you're not running a race boat, in my opinion, but whatever. So a 3-blade's a little bit more complex, obviously. So that's not good. I would make that much sharper. So there's a couple of ways to do this. When you sharpen a prop, you always sharpen on the leading edge. Now, a lot of people will think that's the leading edge. This is a brand new prop, by the way, from Zip Kids. You never ever sharpen on this side. This is the leading edge, because you think about the boat moving forward. This is the edge that's hitting the water first. Make sense? Okay. This is the edge that you sharpen. You do not sharpen this. And we're not going to get into tongue grooving and all that stuff. This is because I honestly don't do it. I don't race boats. I build boats that are super fast that could be raced, but I don't race. And there's much better people out there that know how to do like the whole notching out and whatever. I don't, never done it on purpose. I think I have, but I didn't notice the difference. There's a couple ways to do this. If you're married and you need to spend a lot of time out in the workshop, okay, you can use a honing stone, and eventually you'll get a decent edge on it. Now, again, they do not have to be, this is a whetstone, by the way, they do not have to be razor blade sharp, but you want them to, the sharper that leading edge is, slicing into that water, the less resistance you're going to have, which means less heat. What cavitation is, let's talk about this for a minute. A lot of people think cavitation in a real boat is when you are too close to the surface with your prop. Like anybody that's driven a ski boat or a pontoon boat probably has been through this. You're too close to the surface and you're actually pulling air down and the prop can't grab and it revs up. That's not really cavitation. What cavitation is actually friction against the water. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there, but friction against the water, and you're actually burning the water off the prop. So cavitation can occur when your blade is very dull. It's harder on your hardware. It's slower with your boat. So that's why we sharpen these. So this is a method that will work. And if you're one of those hunter type of dudes, you just another way to do it is with sandpaper. Now you can actually affix this into a vise if you want to. Now I always try to sharpen with the way of the water. So you got to think about this. This thing's spinning this way, right? Counterclockwise if you're looking at it. I tend to sharpen it like that with the grain. You like that sound effect? Like that. And even if I'm doing it by power sharpening, which I'll show you in a minute, I'll put my finger under it like this, and I'll literally go in that direction. Now, this is sandpaper that I use for refinishing guitars, not really props, but 1000 grit. I have one of these little mandrels, and I buy these discs, little Velcro discs for them, like that, okay? And you can do this with an orbital too, I suppose, if you want to. You want to put your orbital in the vise. And I put this in my drill press, and that's how I do my props. But I have a good rhythm down. I've been doing it for a long time, so when this thing's spinning, I'm doing it like that, right? But the problem is, one, if you hit the angle wrong, you'll rip the sandpaper right off this thing and trash it. And two, if you catch it wrong the other way, you can trash your hand. So what I try to do, well, I always wear a glove. But I hold my finger like that. I wear a leather glove, and I go like that. That way I can actually feel, we're not using 60 grit. We're not using Fruity Pebbles on this thing. We're using something that's fairly fine. And I get all the way from the neck root all the way down. Okay, however you want to do it. You can also use a Dremel. Okay, this is scary. Okay, because you got to try to use a Dremel is mount this in a vise, like a little hobby vise. You guys have seen mine, just a little Harbor Freight hobby vise. And I'll mount it, and I'll, if I wanted to use a Dremel, and I'd use a super fine grit. Don't use this crap. This is like, grind a kidney out, 60 grit or something. Don't use that. Use something really, really fine. So once that's sharpened, and that's basically, I can show you how I do it, but you guys get the gist. If I show you the way I do it on the drill press, you don't really see anything because it's literally like, that's all I'm doing. It looks like that. Okay. So once this is sharpened, now we go into the balancing act. With balancing, you need a balancer. All right. Now, this one I believe is from Zip Kits. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Put a link in the description. And it's got little 4 wheels. They're concentrically mounted. And the axle rides in there. Now, not my preferred method. I like magnetic balancers, okay? Now, magnetic balancers, I'll put a picture of one up here right now. This bar is held in with magnets, opposing magnets like this. Perfectly fine. Not an issue. If you're doing nitro, little nitro, like 7.5, 3.5 outboard, 7.5, or you're doing smaller electrics like, yay big, those really, really light props, don't use one of these friction-based ones. For this prop, you can use a friction base because it's heavy enough, it's not going to affect it. But when you get a really, really, really lightweight, and you're really looking to race, if you're just a hobbyist like I am and you're not racing, okay, fine. But I would use magnetic with a smaller prop. So how these work, this is a Dubro. You can get I get mine from Zip, obviously, because that's my boy. And so what we're going to do, a little piece of silicone there, a little spring for tension, and you can see this thing.
So what?
So what? So let's dance.
So funny story. The reason everything's rusted, and it's a real light rust. It's a real light surface thing. It's because I was doing homemade plating this summer, and I had muriatic acid in my shop, and if that shit gets in the atmosphere, anything that's steel will rust. Period, paragraph. And I knew that. I do metal for a living, and it's like, I was just, yeah, so, okay, there you go. Not cute. Now, you can spin it. I'll probably zoom in here. Okay, enough theatrics. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to see which lobe is the heavy. Obviously, gravity is your friend. Okay, that's our heavy lobe. So what I do, got a better way, let me know. I take a Sharpie. I pull it out. That's the heavy lobe. I mark prop after we get done doing this. So we're going to take material off because we need to make this bottom lobe, the one with the mark, the same weight as this lobe. And in theory, what should happen is when you're sharp, you should be able to put this shaft in any position and the prop should stay there. Like I should be able to do that and it stays, which it's not really. I put it there and it should stay. It goes like this. Like no matter what we do, it's like, okay, let's put it here. And we let it go and it goes zoom, 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 and lands horizontal. What that is the bottom side of your neck right here, your throat, is heavier than the top side of your throat. What that means is the balance of the blades is good, but the hub is off. Okay? So then you have to start removing material from the hub. So first thing we start with, well, you have to start with basically, I'm going to take my Dremel and I'm going to polish with a sanding drum, not the edge. You just sharpened that. Don't fuck that up. Go through here. And don't make gouges. You want to make it uniform, okay? You don't want anything where the water is going to have to ripple to get off there. You want a nice, smooth definition.
I have one question, Dr. Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
So, if, worst case scenario, you can always smooth it out with, actually, you could use Scotch-Brite if it's real light. But I'm going to go ahead and grind this off a little bit. Now, this is a super coarse sandpaper. I don't recommend it, but we'll do it. Okay. As long as you're uniform, and I'll smooth this out later. Polish it out. All right. And it's still heavy. Okay. So what we'll do then is we'll just keep taking material off, and you can always polish that out. And I usually do. What I do is I will keep grinding it off. Don't use a stone, okay? I'll keep grinding this off, and then I'll take it over to my drum or my drill press with this drum in it, and I'll polish it with a real high grit 1100, 1500 grit sandpaper, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just grind this down a little bit, and we'll be right back. Alright, so I do use my drill press with that, and I think that if you go in the description of the video, on all my videos, I have my Amazon list that all the crap that I use is in there. I think that drum that I put my Dremel, or my, Jesus, my drill press is in there, so I use that with like a 220, okay, and I'll polish that out later, not a big deal. So get that down. I use that to, notice I didn't hit the edge, I only, so it's still a little ear heavy. Actually, it's ear heavy the other way. If you look at this, let's go ahead and assemble this up. Okay, there's the ear that we've been grinding on. There's the ear lobe, whatever you want to call it. Okay, now I'm heavy the other way, but not by much. Okay, oops, that helps. All right. So I actually took off a little too much material. So now what we're gonna, the hub is too heavy and it always goes to one side. At that point, what I'll do, so you can see, this is actually isn't that far out of whack. Let's put it this way. I can already tell that that hub, because I put it this way. Again, I like magnetic balancers. This, my magnetic balancer, I think I stepped on it or something. It's broke. I don't like these mechanical ones. See, it's close enough, really. It's not horrible. It's close, but if I set it here, a magnetic would never stay there, all right? But I can tell by this that the hub, it's not doing a radical displacement. I can tell that the hub's going to be a little bit heavy right on this side, and that's fine. So when you do this, I'm going to try to keep this video a little bit short because it's kind of stupid to watch me grind it because it's grinding, all right? Once these lobes are, let it go, and it goes like that, your hub's heavy. Then you have to start taking material out of the hub. Don't hit the blades. I usually do it as far back as I can. Usually it's not very much. Usually that's fairly minimalistic. Now, before we go, one of the things that I've been asked a few times is, when do you know when to stop? Now, that depends on who you are. If you're my buddy JJ that races every weekend in Florida and he's like a trophy guy, you would stop at the point where it cuts paper, in my opinion, and whatever position you put this shaft in, it stays. That if I was him, okay? And he'd probably tell you the same thing. I guarantee he would. An electric sharpness, yeah, okay, fine, but balance all the way, because you're talking massive RPM. With a gasser, you're talking 16 to 20,000 RPM, whatever. Yeah, it's still important, don't get me wrong, because it's still a lot of mass on the end there, but not as important as electric. And I'll fight anybody on that. It's just basic physics. Now, again, getting back to the point, if you're racing, I would make sure your blades are sharp and you can put this thing in any position and it stays. Mine, I usually go to the point where I can put it in about any position and it stays, but the hub might make it rotate back a little bit because I'm not racing. I don't need every single... Usually your hub being heavy is not going to damage your boat. I've never had it happen. Your blades being out of whack will. Okay? So if you're that guy that wants to squeeze every RPM out of your boat and everything else, yes, you make that thing so you can put it anywhere and it stays. And I still recommend a magnetic balancer. Try it. Try it both ways. You're not going to mess it up. Now, a 3-bladed prop's the same principle. You just kind of use common sense with it. It's a little bit trickier because you have 3 blades, but other than that, it's not too hard. If you have any questions, you want me to elaborate a little bit more, this is a basic 30,000 square foot view of how to do this, okay? If you have any questions, you want to see it go in depth a little further, I can do a video where I actually show you how I'm doing it. I'm just trying to do a quick run through right now. But until then, guys, keep the dry side up, and hope you're running more boats than me. See ya. Bye.